Hello and welcome to the next edition of the BriefingsDirect Voice of the Innovator podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on the latest in IT innovation. Our next discussion focuses on the growing complexity around multi-cloud management. We'll explore how greater accountability is needed to improve business impacts from all too common haphazard cloud adoption. Stay with us now as we hear how new tools, processes, and methods are bringing insights and actionable analysis to regain control over hybrid cloud and multi-cloud sprawl. Here to help us explore a more pragmatic path to modern IT deployments management is Harsh Singh, Director of Product Management for Hybrid Cloud Products and Solutions at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Welcome to BriefingsDirect, Harsh.
Thanks a lot, Dana. Happy to be here.
We're glad you're with us. Let's start at sort of a top-line view. What is driving the need for multi-cloud at all? Why are people choosing to be in multiple clouds and in multiple deployment types?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, especially today, right? However, you got to step back a little and you got to think about why did people go to the cloud in the first place? Right? What was the drivers there? And then understand how it sprawled into or expanded into a multi-cloud environment. Initially, way back when I think dinosaurs roamed the earth, I guess, now it seems, when people started moving towards public cloud or cloud services, the idea was speed, right? Quick agility, quick access to resources. IT was getting in the way for on-premise resources, and people said, let me get VMs, let me get the work going, and let me deploy things faster. And they were able to quickly launch applications, and this increased their feature velocity, this increased their time to market, and cloud helped them get there very fast. However, as we now get choices of multi-cloud environments where you have various public cloud environments, you have now private cloud environments where people could actually do similar things on-premise, there comes a time when people start realizing, certain applications fit in certain places better than others. For example, if I want to run some kind of serverless environment, I might want to run it in one cloud provider versus another. If I want to run more machine learning AI kind of functionality, I might want to run it somewhere else. And if I might have a big data farm and there's a lot of data that I want to crunch, I might want to run that on premise. So you have now choice, right? So people are thinking, what's the best place to run my applications? And that's where this multi-cloud comes in. Now, however, this doesn't come for free. As you add more cloud environments, as you add different tools, it leads to what we call tool sprawl, right? And you have people now tying all these tools together, trying to figure out the cost of these different places. Are we in compliance with various norms that we have within our organization? And it becomes very complex, very fast, and now it's becoming a management problem, right, in terms of how do I manage all these environments together.
Right, and the reason I refer to this as haphazard is that it's, in a sense, too much of a good thing. There are very good reasons to do what people are doing with cloud, hybrid cloud and multi-cloud, but that there hasn't been a much of a rationalization about how to go about it in an organizational or cultural way that's in the best interest of the overall business. So we can't just address this through technology. It seems like the culture and rethinking of how we go about deploying IT needs to be part of it. Is that how you see it as well?
Absolutely, right. So I see it as three pillars that needs to be addressed in terms of looking at this complexity and able to manage it well is people, process, and technology, right? Technology exists, but unfortunately, unless you have the right skill set in the people and you have the right processes in place, it's going to be the wild, wild west again, right? And everything is just going to be crazy, and at the end, you'll end up faltering and not achieving what you really wanted to achieve. So I would look at people, process, and technology as the three pillars of the stool, which is absolutely necessary for any company to look at as they traverse on this multi-cloud journey.
But this is a long-term and thorny problem. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Do you agree?
I agree, but I do see it getting worse, but I also see a lot of people beginning to address these problems, right? A lot of vendors and including us from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we are looking at this problem and we are trying to get ahead of it before a lot of enterprises basically crash and burn. And we have some experiences with some of our customers and where we have engaged with them and we have helped them in this journey. Yes, it is going to get worse and people are going to realize that they need some professional help, and it will be absolutely required that we work with these customers very closely and take them along in this journey based on what we have experienced.
Is it your take that approaching a solution for hybrid cloud management and multi-cloud management can be done in the same way, or are they fundamentally different? And maybe should we be thinking about them as separate management problems, or can we combine them and kill two birds with one stone?
So I have the belief that I think they're fundamentally at the underlying layer is the same problem set that you're trying to solve. What you're trying to do is you're trying to deploy the applications in the right places that's right for your business. Whether it's multi-cloud, whether it's hybrid cloud, and sometimes the names, the terminologies blur one or the other. But at the end of the day, it is a multi-cloud or it's multiple environments that you have to manage. Yes, hybrid cloud, you might be connecting private and off-prem, and maybe multi-cloud is various different clouds. But it is, at the end of the day, the problem will be the same, that you have multiple tools, multiple environments, people need training, and the processes need to be in place for them to operate properly.
One of the things that makes me more optimistic about the solution here is that there might be a fourth leg on that stool, right? People, process, and technology, but I think there's also economics. And one of the things that can really make a business change is when money is being lost and the business people think that there's a way to resolve that. So is the economics issue about cost overruns and lack of discipline when it comes to procurement, in a sense, a part of the problem? But to me, it's really part of the solution, because a business problem is something that's going to get solved.
Funny you say that, right? I'm laughing right now because I've talked to so many customers, and there was this CIO that I was talking to from a entertainment media company recently, and she had a problem, right? They had gone in cloud first strategy, and they didn't look at the economics pieces of it, and she didn't realize. She was telling me on the call, Harsh, I really don't know where my virtual machines and where my workloads are running. At the end of the month, I'm seeing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars bill, right? So I'm being surprised by all of this stuff. I don't even know whether they're in compliance and these overruns of cost, and I don't know how to get my handle around it. So this is the real problem that customers are facing, and I've heard this again and again, right? That they don't have visibility into the environments. They don't know what's being utilized. Sometimes they're underutilized, sometimes they're overutilized, and they don't know what they're going to end up paying at the end of the day. A common example is that if you take an example of public cloud, people will launch a very large VM in an environment because that's what they're used to doing. Hey, I want to have the most resources possible. But they will consume maybe a 10% or 20% of it. What they don't realize is that they're paying for the whole bill. And visibility is going to become key to fight or to get a handle on the economics of things.
Yeah, we've seen these kinds of business problems before in procurement, materials procurement, for example, or services and human capital. And many of the times it's the Wild West, as you mentioned, but then they start to bring it back in from an indirect spend to more of a direct spend where they can negotiate and they can combine services and look for redundancies. But you can't do that until you know, as your example pointed out, what you've got and how much it's costing. So is that the first step, is sort of get an inventory approach to where your cloud deployments are, what the costs are, and then start to characterize them?
Absolutely, right? So that's where you start, right? And at HPE, we have services that do that. The first thing is to really understand where you are today, right? Get a base level. What is on-premise? What is off-premise? Where are things? Which applications are required to run where? What's the footprint that I require in these different places? And what is the cost overall that I'm incurring today, and where do I want to be? That's the first step to getting to an environment which you can control and get away from that Wild West thing, right? It's no longer, more in compliance. Put the guardrails. So the IT is, again, now looking at how do we put guardrails in place so that we don't get into the problems that we are facing today.
And then to be maybe a counterpoint to that, I don't think the IT organization wants to be perceived as the big bad killjoy that comes into the data scientists and says, you can't get those clusters to support the data environment that you want. So how do you balance the need for governance, security, and cost control with not stifling innovation and giving people freedom?
That's a very good question, and this is something that we, when we started building out our managed cloud solutions, when we looked at how do we provide provide the guardrails to IT, yet not stifle the innovation and the line of business and the developers that want access to those resources. This was a key criteria. The way you do this is that you don't become the man in the middle. The idea would be that you allow the line of businesses and developers to access the resources they need. However, what you do is you put guardrails around, okay, which resources can you access and how much can you access? You provide visibility into budgets. You let them access the direct APIs of the different multi-cloud environments. You don't say, hey, you have to put in a request to us to do this. You have to be more of a behind-the-scenes kind of thing, right? Hidden from view. At the same time, you need to provide those budgets, those controls and things that they can perform their tasks at the speed they want and get access to the resources that they need, but within the guardrails and the compliance and the requirements that the IT might have.
So now that HPE has been in the vanguard of creating the tools and methods to get this insight, start to make measurements, recognize the need for that balance between control and freedom and innovation, have you noticed any change in some of your early adopter clients where they've created new organizational patterns? Maybe it's a center of excellence. Maybe it's a cloud management bureau of some sort. Does there need to be a counterpart? Do these tools, in fact, open up such information that it requires a compensatory management change as well?
Yeah, again, very good points, right, in terms of this is the process and the people part that you want to address. How do you align your organizations and what are the things that you need to do there? With some of our customers, and, we have seen them think about it. Some are beginning to make those changes, but, organizations are difficult to change. And as they get on this journey, some of them are early, some of them are much later stage. So later stage ones, they get it, they're making those changes. But a lot of the customers are still in the early phases of multi-cloud and hybrid cloud world. So we are making those connections and we are working with them to make sure that they understand that these are some of the changes that they'll need to do in order to function properly in this new world.
Unfortunately, this is coming at a time when those kinds of management skills, understanding both data and ops and IT and ops and cloud and ops, these are skills that are hard to find and hard to keep sometimes. So one of the things that I'm seeing more of course, is the approach of adoption of automation to make this less of a overcoming complication task and more of a guidance, strategy, analysis task that then the systems can carry out for you. So tell me about how automation is coming to bear on some of these problems and that perhaps mitigates some of the skills shortage issues.
So the tools can only do so much. So you automate, you make sure that the infrastructure is automated, you make sure that your access to public cloud or any other cloud environments is automated, and that can mitigate some of the problems in it, but I still see a need for a little bit of hand-holding from time to time in terms of the process and people. That will still be required, and automation will get you so far. And you can tie in storage networks and compute, and you can put all that together, and that will reduce the need and dependency on some of the process and people. But you will still need a place where someone can onboard these environments, they can manage these environments, they can debug these environments, they can patch these environments. Automation will get you to mitigate the physical labor and someone going in and doing it and taking days to do it. However, you need that expertise to understand what needs to be done. And this is where we are coming in. HPE around. Might have heard about our GreenLake managed service offerings. So we are moving towards more of a as-a-service model towards a lot of our software and tooling, where we are using the automation and we are helping the customers fill that gap, that expertise gap, or the people gap that they might have. And we can offer, more of a managed service where we are managing this for the customer and we are using automation tools underneath it to make our task easier. So the customer at the end of the day they're only looking at an outcome or an experience versus worrying about the details of how these things work.
All right, let's get back to the problem of multi-cloud management. Now, why can't you just use the tools that the cloud provider themselves provide? Maybe you might have deployments across multiple clouds. Why can't you use the tools from one to manage more? Why do we need, in a sense, a neutral or third-party position on this?
Suppose take a hypothetical case where I have now deployments in AWS, Amazon, and I have deployments in GCP. And to make things worse, more complicated, I shouldn't say worse, more complicated, I have something on-premise as well. How would I go about tying these things together? Now, if I go to Amazon, they're very, very opinionated on Amazon services. AWS, they have no interest in looking at bills that's coming out of GCP or Azure. they're focused on their service and what they're delivering. But the reality is that the customers are using these different environments for different things. So the interest, these public cloud providers or these multi-cloud providers don't have interest. It's not in their interest to manage other clouds or look at other environments. So third parties come in which tie everything together, where we realize that no one customer would be locked into one environment. So what happens is that if they go to, say, AWS, they can only look at billing and services and performance matrix of that one service. And they do a very good job. So each one of these guys do a very good job of exposing their own services, providing you visibility into their own services, but they don't tie it across multiple environments. And especially if you throw in the on-prem piece into the mix, it's very difficult to look at and compare costs across these multiple environments from a tool that comes out of these vendors.
And when we talk about on-prem, we're not just talking about the difference between your data center and a cloud provider's data center. We're also talking about the difference between a traditional IT environment and also the IT management tools that came out of that. So how has HPE thought about crossing the chasm between a traditional IT management, automation, and composability types of benefits, and also that higher-level multi-cloud management? Tell me about how you get from basically 30 years ago to 10 years from now.
So one of the key realizations of tying this world together, right, and from my experience, and I've been doing this for some time, where customers have truly struggled, right? I've seen customers spend months and months and months and sometimes even years to put together a solution from various vendors and tying them together and deploying something on premise and then trying to tie that to an off-premise environment. What HPE, we fundamentally changed the way how on-premise and off-premise environments are managed by introducing our own SaaS environment, which the customers did not have to manage. So a SaaS environment, a portal through which they can connect their on-premise environment. And since we natively had very programmable, API-driven infrastructure, we were able to connect that and being able to drive it from a cloud, from the cloud itself. And then from there, it was very easy to hook up other cloud providers like AWS and Azure and GCP and tie the two worlds together. So as you build the tools, the key is to understand automation on the infrastructure piece and how can you connect and manage this from a centralized portal that can tie all these things together with a click. And what we are going to do and what we are doing is through this common portal, people can onboard their multi-cloud environments, get visibility into their costs, get visibility into compliance, look at, are they HIPAA compliant or not? Are they PCI compliant or not? And get access to resources that allows them to manage or sometimes manage these environments for them. So, for example, onboarding into any public cloud is very, very complex. Setting up a private cloud is very complex. But today, with the software that we are building and some of the customers are using, we could set up a private cloud environment for people within hours. All you have to do is connect with, our tools like OneView and other things that we have built for the infrastructure automation pieces, tie that together to a public cloud-facing tenant portal, and onboard that. And then again, with a few clicks, we can connect with their public cloud accounts and give them visibility into their complete environment and bring in cost analytics. So we have consumption analytics as part of our GreenLake offering, which allows us to look at cost for on-premise as well as off-premise resources. And you can get a dashboard which shows you what you're consuming where.
Wow, now that level of management and ability to be distributed across all these different deployment models strikes me as a gift that could keep giving. Once you've accomplished this and you're able to get control over your costs and you're able to rationalize which cloud provider to use for which types of workloads, it strikes me that you can then also use that same management and insight to start to actually move things around based on more of a dynamic or even algorithmic basis so that you can get cost optimization on the fly. You can react to market forces, dynamics in terms of demand on your servers or on your virtual machines. Is that the case that you're going to be able to accelerate the ability for people to move their fungible workloads across different clouds, both hybrid and multi-cloud?
Yep, absolutely right. There's more complexity in terms of moving workloads here and there because there's data proximity requirements and there's various other requirements that you do. But the optimization piece is Absolutely we can do on the fly, right? Especially if you start throwing AI into the mix and you're learning over time in terms of what needs to be deployed where and where your data gravity might be and where applications closer to data. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's there. You might have edge environments that you might want to manage from this common portal. All that can be brought together. And then now that you have these insights, you can make those optimization decisions. Hey, this application is best deployed in this location for these reasons. And you can even automate that, right? You can make that policy driven. You could think about it this way. You are a person who wants to deploy something, you request a resource, and that gets deployed for you based on an algorithm that has already decided where's the optimal place to put it. All of that working behind the scenes without you having to really think about it. That's where the world will head.
Yeah. All right, great. We've been talking about some really interesting subjects at kind of a high level, even some thought leadership involved. But are there any concrete examples that you can think of that would help illustrate how some companies are already starting to do this, and what kind of benefits do they get? So maybe you can name them, maybe you can just describe the use case, but where are people putting these tools to work, and what kind of results are they getting?
I won't name the company here, but there was a company in UK that we had for one of our products where they were able to deploy VMs now within minutes on their on-premise, as well as get cost benefits out of their AWS. So what we did was we were able to go in, connect to their VMware environment in this case, and allowed them to deploy virtual machines. I mean, we were up and running in 2 hours. And they could then really optimize for their developers to deploy VMs and request resources in that environment. They saved 40%. The data that we did is they saved 40% in operational efficiencies. So now they were more cost optimized. Their IT team was less pressured to go and launch VMs for their developers. They gave them direct self-service access through which they could go and deploy VMs and other resources on-premise. At the same time, the IT had the visibility into what was being deployed in their public cloud environments, and then optimize those environments for the size of the VMs and things that they were running there, the workloads, and gain some cost advantages there as well.
All right, great. Before we sign off, for organizations that recognize that they have a sprawl problem when it comes to cloud, that their costs are not being optimized by any stretch, but that they're still needing to go about this at sort of a crawl, walk, run level, what should they be doing to put themselves in an advantageous position to be able to take advantage of these tools when they start to really dig in and use them? That is to say, are there any precursor activities that companies should be thinking about in terms of getting control over their cloud and then being able to better leverage these tools when the time comes?
I think we start with visibility, right? At the beginning of the call, that's what we said. You need to get an inventory of what you're doing first. And then you need to ask the question, why? What benefit are you getting from these different environments? Ask that question and then begin to optimize. I'm sure there are very good reasons for using multi-cloud environments, and many customers do. I've seen many customers use it, and for the right reasons. However, there are other people who have struggled because there was no governance and guardrails around this, and there was no people or process to put it in place, and they have truly got into a sprawled environment, and they don't know what they don't know. So first and foremost, get an idea of what you want to do and where you are today. Get a baseline. And then understand, okay, what is the impact? What are the levers to the cost and what are the drivers for efficiencies? And start working through there. Make sure that you understand the people and process sometimes more than even the technology, because the technology does exist, but you need to make sure that your people and processes are aligned. And then lastly, call me. My phone's open. I'm happy to have a talk with any customer that wants to have a talk.
Well, great. On that note of the personal approach to this, people who are passionate in an organization around things like efficiency and cost control are looking for innovation. Where do you see the innovation taking place for cloud management? Is this the IT ops people? Is this the finance people? Is it in maybe procurement? Where's the innovative thinking that the passion for taking control of cloud sprawl manifesting itself? Where do you see it?
Innovation, I see, all three are good places, but sometimes they're seeing their own problem sets. Finance people can drive innovation, but I don't see them innovating, right? What I should say is I see them more as a driver for the need for change. And I see IT ops being at the center of the innovation circles, where they are the one who will be affecting that change. Finance and procurement, they could benefit from these changes, and they could be drivers. They could be driving the requirements, and they could be saying, I need to do this differently because it doesn't work for me. And the innovation coming from IT ops and even developers and line of businesses who have been doing this for a while and who understand what they really need.
All right, well, very good. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been exploring the growing complexity around multi-cloud management and how greater accountability is needed around uses and costs and business impacts due to what is all too often haphazard cloud adoption. And we've learned about new tools, processes, and methods that are bringing additional insights, visibility, and ultimately actionable analysis to regain control over multi-cloud sprawl. So please join me in thanking our guest. We've been here with Harsh Singh, Director of Product Management for hybrid cloud products and solutions at HPE. Thank you, Harsh.
Thank you very much, Dana. It was a pleasure.
And a big thank you as well to our audience for joining us for this BriefingsDirect Voice of the Innovator interview. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Harbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise-sponsored discussions. Thanks again for listening. Please pass this along to your IT community and do come back next time.